mammoth river beasts.
Like a goldfish on steroids.
Fighting flying whoppers.
This fish erupts right next to me, and I'm thinking, how close is it? I can get speared or skewered.
And one of the scariest alpha predators on Earth.
Holy man, look at this.
The shark went crazy, and there was just no way we were going to hold on to the rope. You were just going to be dragged overboard.
For science, sport, and food, it's the most extreme encounters in our eternal quest for hooked monster fish. Titanic beasts that defy the imagination. Mysterious and mammoth, they rule the underwater depths. Fearsome kings of the food chain, they have almost no natural enemies. And many are almost limitless in their capacity to get even bigger. To encounter these Goliaths face to face, we must meet them on their turf, in the ultimate showdowns of man versus Whopper. They're notorious alpha predators, colossal killers, majestic, mysterious, and smarter than we think. The great white shark.
The history, the danger, the whole Jaws phenomenon. But I think the other thing that really have gotten people interested is that they're starting to learn more about them, and they're finding that they're really fascinating animals.
Great whites are the largest predatory fish on the planet. Females typically outsize males. Record great whites have stretched longer than 6 meters, weighing nearly 2 metric tons. Only killer whales can take them in a fight.
So white sharks are like those NFL linebackers, really powerful, really buff, very, very fast. When you get to be that big, you can bite first and ask questions later.
Great whites toss and shake their victims, sawing into flesh with 3,000 razor-sharp protrusions. In the shredding, slicing bite of a great white shark, few prey stand a chance. And put together, jaw and teeth are a lethal combination. To gauge total bite pressure, biologists use a device called a gnathodynamometer. It measures force in kilos per square centimeter. One shark tooth can exert almost 60 kilos of pressure. Multiply that by the total bite surface area, and you get over 2.5 metric tons of pressure potential. For anyone who dares to take one on, catching a great white's only half the battle. But when anglers catch one with a hand line, surviving the encounter is the ultimate challenge.
Just their sheer presence. When you're there with a great white shark just meters away, you know that you're with the king of the ocean.
March 2007, Chatham Islands, New Zealand. Two experienced sport fishermen, Matt Watson and Peter Jackson, are on a dangerous assignment. Working for the Department of Conservation, they plan to get a live DNA sample of a great white shark.
It's a way of mapping their migrations, their movements, their growth rates, and also what genetic families they're from, because not a lot's known about them and they travel such vast distances.
The mission's simple, but extremely risky. Using rod and reel, the anglers intend to catch a great white, pull it to the boat, and clip a tissue sample from a fin. But to do it, they have to get up close to one of the most terrifying creatures on Earth.
They are respected and feared. I mean, they are something that are just so much more powerful than what we are, particularly when we're in their domain. You know, you just wouldn't stand a chance.
As Matt and the crew scan the waters, someone yells out a single word: fin.
The fish there. Yeah, it is.
Just ahead, an ominous shadow moves under the water. It's huge.
Oh, it's a big one. Holy crap, it's a big one. It's a monster. It's a huge one.
Matt decides to change tactics, switching rods for rope.
Just go to the old right.
I said, there's no way we're going to catch that on rod and reel. And we decided on the spot that we were going to try and catch it on a hand line.
Moving quickly, Matt ties a rope line together. He attaches a piece of bait and casts it towards the circling fin. He's never used this rope rig before. He hopes it'll work.
Bring that in, Pete, so we can make sure we've got a bait on it.
Almost immediately, Matt feels a tug on the line. A bite.
Yeah, look at it.
But just as fast,
Just bust it off. No.
the rope goes slack. The great whites drop the bait.
Oh no, is it all wrapped up?
The angler's convinced his chance at a DNA sample's lost.
When the stakes are so high and at the moment the fish gets away, it's just you're left feeling so totally empty.
But the shark has other ideas.
Okay, well, that bait's still alive.
The great white turns around and comes back for more.
Here he comes, look at that.
Seeing it next to the boat, Matt can't believe his eyes.
That is huge, mate, I'm trembling. I'm trembling, that is a huge fish, mate.
This time, the great white chomps on a second piece of bait.
You've got to look at the teeth.
But once the beast feels the hook in its mouth, it begins thrashing, charging and circling in a frenzy.
Oh, look at this. This is unreal.
The great white draws closer to the boat, gnashing on the line, only to race out again in a powerful surge.
Okay, the rope's running out. It's got a good hold. It's not going to let go. Look at it.
The fish would just have to shake its head, and it would shake us around like rag dolls.
Look at that, head out of the water.
The rope might as well have been tied to the back of a train. We had about as much chance of pulling it in.
Suddenly, Matt realizes the Goliath predator's changed course.
Oh, here he's come back.
It's headed directly towards them.
It's charging back towards us really aggressively. It's got its mouth open and it's chomping.
The crew holds its breath as the great white approaches and swims under the boat.
The rope's under the boat. Go hard. Go.
It's a dire situation. Underwater, the rope line's perilously close to the propeller. If a spinning blade cuts the line loose, the great white could escape.
Straighten up, mate. Straighten up.
For the crew, staying calm is critical. One wrong move could end in disaster.
If anyone had their foot in a loop of that rope or got a wrap of that line tangled around our hands, there's no way you're going to be able to hold yourself.
Watch out, mate. Watch out. Watch that rope.
You were just going to be dragged overboard.
This is amazing.
The battle of man versus great white rages for a backbreaking 40 minutes until the crew gets a lucky break. The rope line tangles around the shark's tail.
This is amazing.
For the mission, it's now do or die.
With the rope wrapped around the tail, the fish was unable to swim, and that was a stroke of luck for us. I'm not sure we would have been able to get it in otherwise.
But the real test's just begun. The lassoed shark's only partially immobilized. It can still surge and twist. To avoid harm to shark or angler, the team must get a fin sample fast. They've got to take a knife to one of the ocean's most deadly predators.
I was the most scared that I've ever been.
The crew takes turns positioning themselves over the edge of the boat. They aim for the great white's tail.
You grab my cut.
Once,
Be very careful, mate. Yeah, grab this top fin.
twice. They fail. Each time, they have to pull the powerful shark back in line. It's nerve-wracking work. Finally, with a swift slice,
Just cut.
they've done it.
Yeah, we got our sample. Yeah, we got our sample. Okay.
The sample's placed in a sealed vial.
Okay, no, here. I'll be able to untangle it from here.
Moving fast, the team releases the rope from the great white. The beast swims back into the depths.
Keep on, there it goes. There it goes, swimming away. Woo! Look, it spun around, it's righted itself.
The DNA mission's a success.
Yeah! Oh, thank you so much, bro. You're the man. You're the man, Ski.
I guess afterwards, when you think about, you know, how dangerous it all was, and you have time to take it all in, you think, hey, well, that was pretty dangerous.
And we got our shark.
But for some, the obsession with great whites drives them to take the ultimate plunge, cage diving. As this footage shows, each year thousands of tourists step inside reinforced shark-proof cages and dare to meet the mammoth hunters face to face.
You know, they want to introduce people to sharks and give people an opportunity to experience that.
Advocates say cage diving helps great white appreciation, turning fear into understanding and awareness into urgency to save this remarkable species. But opponents say cage diving threatens great white survival, agitating and inciting them to expend life-saving energy. The biggest controversy rages around a baiting practice called chumming, luring sharks with blood.
The problem is if you let them eat, they may actually get full or get bored and then leave. So the goal is to keep them stimulated, but not feed them. But the bad thing is that we are creating, in some cases, bad habits. So it's like having a nice barbecue restaurant, you know, and they make sure that those odors waft out of the restaurant to lure people down the sidewalk to come to the restaurant. So in a way, chumming does change behavior of animals.
But there's one thing all fans of the great white agree on. As global populations dwindle, protecting these endangered apex predators is a top priority. In the world of monster fish, these whiskered whoppers may not be pretty, but they pack a wallop. Muscular and massive, the Wels catfish.
They're really ugly as a fish goes. They have a big giant mouth, they have little whiskers at the ends, and they have little beady eyes.
What they lack in looks, they make up for in attitude. Aggressive bottom feeders, Wels catfish are equal opportunity carnivores, gobbling nearly any fish or shellfish they encounter. They even hunt animals above the water.
Catfish will eat things like ducks. They'll actually come up to the surface and suck ducks in.
And Europe's largest freshwater fish reaches jaw-dropping proportions. Healthy adults stretch 1.5 meters. Some record breakers have grown 3 meters or longer, topping the scales at over 180 kilos. Biologists credit their mega size to powerful mouths equipped with super suction.
They're the ultimate bottom sucker. I mean, these things are like giant Hoover vacuum cleaners on the bottom.
And Wels catfish are cunning hunters who kill by confusion. Using a pair of sharp fins below their jawlines, the catfish stir up currents and commotion in the water. As prey become disoriented, the catfish goes in for the kill. For anglers, it all makes the whopping Wels catfish a mega catch.
The Wels is the king. They don't need to fear anything, apart from an angler.
October 2004, Westfalen, Germany. Two fishing buddies, Sebastian Rozwadowski and Christoph Grafe, set out for carp and small catfish on the Weser River, known catfish stomping ground. Powering a rubber dinghy, they reach a secret fishing spot and settle in for a relaxing afternoon. They have no idea a leviathan lurks below. Suddenly, Sebastian's rod takes a dip. He's got something huge.
First I thought, hey, we've hooked a giant tree branch. And he says, I have one. And I say, that can't be.
But it's no tree branch. Sebastian lets out his line as the underwater giant pulls the boat to the center of the river, where the current's flow and momentum can help a fish shake a hook, the same currents that are toughest for a fisherman to fight.
For the first half hour, it pulled us zigzag across the river, and we were shocked what might be on the other end.
He did what he wanted with us. We had no control over the fish.
The men struggle to stay afloat as the waters rage around them. They could get swept downstream or caught in the rapids.
It's a fight. The fish is deep down, you sit in your relatively small rubber dinghy, you're at his mercy.
Sebastian battles the mystery Goliath for nearly an hour. He's fast reaching the breaking point. His arms are giving out. Gathering the last of his strength, the angler pulls as hard as he can. In a sudden surge, he sees the whopper at last.
We looked at each other. It was gigantic. We had goosebumps.
The fish whacked his tail on the water. Then I knew, this is a big one.
It's a mammoth Wells catfish, longer than the boat. More than ever, the men are determined to land it, but it's too big to battle in deep water. They decide on a backbreaking and risky plan to maneuver the massive fish toward shore.
You can dislocate a shoulder with such a big fish.
It's human versus animal, or fish versus equipment. The rod, everything could have broken.
Nearly spent, Sebastian and Christoph reach the riverbank. Christoph gets out of the dinghy. Sebastian hands him the rod and reel. But the fish keeps fighting. Sebastian decides there's only one thing left to do: wrestle the beast with his bare hands. He jumps in the water and tries to grab hold of the fighting catfish, but it's too big to manhandle.
It felt as if you're lifting a tree trunk. I pulled him up like this. His whole head was lying in front of me, and his giant chest fin.
Finally, after 5 tries and an epic 2.5-hour tug of war, the angler wrestles the beast into his arms. Victory. It's the catfish of his life, a record breaker. Before releasing it, Sebastian and Christoph weigh and measure the titanic fish. Over 2 meters long and nearly 84 kilos. The largest German wels ever caught on rod and reel. But biologists fear whoppers like the wels may go the way of the dinosaur. Apex predators like these face climate change, pollution, and overfishing. Some believe there's only one hope: taming the wild, turning big fish into livestock, a practice called aquaculture.
In many ways, aquaculture is analogous to farming, except it's an aquatic version. It's like raising cows, except instead of raising cows, you're raising catfish. That's a way of actually protecting wild stocks.
Aquaculture's still in its infancy. Advocates are trying to make practices healthy and sustainable. But opponents say farmed fish are exposed to waste and toxic chemicals used to fight disease in crowded ponds. In addition, farming big fish like catfish, salmon, and tuna requires vast amounts of fish feed. Fish feed caught in the wild.
So one of the challenges of aquaculture is that to do it on a commercial scale, to make it viable, requires crowding a bunch of fish together. You have to feed them a lot. If the fish get sick, you have to use antibiotics. All of these things can alter the habitat. So while the future may be in aquaculture and not the internet, it has to be done in an ecologically sustainable way.
Many argue the ultimate solution is to restore native habitats, allowing alpha predators once again to dominate the deep. Marlin. In an ocean full of whoppers, they're the ultimate swordsman. These speed demon predators can swim over 80 kilometers an hour. But their greatest trick takes them from swimming machine to flying machine.
Well, some marlin can jump probably 15 feet in the air, which is pretty impressive.
Why do marlin jump? The question captivates anglers and biologists alike. From sardines to tuna, other fish can fly. But marlin may be the ocean's most astounding aerial athletes.
They'll jump, they'll tail walk, or they'll literally leap clear out of the water. And to see a fish that big do that, the amount of speed and force it takes to get that big a body out of the water is pretty amazing.
Theories on marlin leaping range from fleeing to feeding. Hooked marlin catapult above water, trying to shake themselves free. Other times, they may leap to ambush prey or lose a potential predator. But some biologists believe marlin jumping may come down to a pesky parasite. These constant companions are called copepods, tiny crustaceans with cylindrical shells, long antennae, and grasping legs. Copepods cling to marlin, crawling up and down, burrowing into their skin. Their nickname says it all: sea lice. To try to shake these pests, marlin may take to the sky.
So they're like lice on a human, or a flea or a tick. They're along for the ride. Some of them actually suck blood or fluids from the fish. So other reasons why they may do that is to shake parasites off their bodies.
Whatever the reason marlin jump, one thing's certain. For an angler, these flying fighters are the ultimate challenge.
And when it's going all over in the air, you're seeing this thing jump and going greyhounding in front of you. They can tow you for miles.
January 2007. Fishing mecca, Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Adventure angler Jonathan Schwartz is on a mission to fish record-sized marlin. The only catch? He plans to do it from a kayak.
There's 2 thin layers of plastic that's separating you from a huge monster fish.
To reach open ocean, Jonathan tows out attached to a small transport boat. On board's a trusted crew, but they can only help the ambitious angler for so long. Big game kayak fishing's extremely dangerous. Even the most skilled sportsman can lose a limb, his boat, or his life.
What can go wrong on a kayak? Well, first of all, the fish can pull you over. Another thing that obviously can happen is that with their pointed beaks, they can skewer you or they can skewer the kayak.
Jonathan's heard rumors there's a huge marlin population on the hunt for prey, but so far he's struck out.
I was paddling around all day, miles, and I was exhausted. Till right before the day was over, we decided for one last try.
Suddenly, he spots dive-bombing birds, sure sign of mackerel schooling below, and a marlin feeding frenzy. Jonathan begins paddling furiously. He casts a baited reel. But the angler faces a triple challenge: scouting, rowing, and fishing, all at the same time.
And so what I do is I try to catch up to the marlin. And then as soon as I did, I'd realize my bait is 50 yards behind me. And the guys on the boat were going, "They're over there!"
As Jonathan struggles, the marlin race after the fleeing mackerel. The sportsman fears his mission's impossible.
There's only so much I can do, so I'd reel in my bait, and by the time I reeled in my bait, the fish were 100 yards over there.
Jonathan knows his only hope is to find a slow-moving marlin pulling up the rear. A fish swimming behind the pack might be drawn to Jonathan's bait. There it is! His hunch is right on target.
Next thing I realized is I was on a fish, and the thing immediately turned my kayak around.
Jonathan's hooked a monster. As the kayak spins in the water, the fish takes off like a torpedo. Any moment, the kayak could dangerously capsize, and the fighting fish could drag Jonathan under. Suddenly, the marlin breaches, trying to throw the hook. Soaring above the water, Jonathan sees the whopper for the first time.
And this thing was like the dream fish. I saw it first leap out of the water, spray glistening in the sun, and I knew that I was on the flight of my life.
Finally, after a 45-minute battle of wills, the marlin starts to slow down. Jonathan makes his move. Marshaling his strength, he pulls as hard as he can. Reeling fast, at last he gets the whopper to the boat. It's massive. It's as long as he is and well over 45 kilos. But the battle isn't over. The sportsman wants to set the marlin free. To do it, he has to wrestle its sharp, spiny bill, unhooking the embedded leader by hand. A dangerous duel. Jonathan moves quickly and carefully.
I'm gonna take the hook out of his mouth.
He places a hand on the bill sword and eases towards the embedded hook. He's done it.
All right. Woo!
Jonathan gently pushes the marlin under.
Took the hook out and everything. See you later, big boy.
The battle of man and fish is over.
When I was able to take the hook out of the marlin's mouth and see it swim away in good health, looked down, I had all 10 fingers. I was like, yee-hoo! It was just an unbelievable experience.
But today, the marlin faces another lethal danger: bycatch. Commercial fisheries go after valuable food like tuna and swordfish using mile-long multi-hooked fishing lines, a practice called longlining. Marlin casualties are part of the cost of doing business.
Marlin do not do very well on a long line. They have to constantly swim in order to breathe. So as a result, they can't be easily released. So many of them die on the line. There are a lot of scientists looking for finding ways to reduce bycatch in longline fisheries because this is where most of the seafood comes from that everybody likes to eat. Many states don't allow the sale of marlin. So as a result, that's one way of protecting them.
Big as a bathtub with a scaly suit of armor. In the world of whoppers, they're the T-Rex of the goldfish family. Siamese giant carp.
The giant Siamese carp is like a goldfish on steroids. And they just get really, really fat.
The planet's largest carp can reach gargantuan dimensions. Whoppers have stretched 1.5 meters, weighing over 90 kilos. Impressive size for a frequent vegetarian.
The fact that they get as big as they do is amazing. They eat plant material. They're the cows of the fish world.
One secret to their heft is an appetite to match. Freshwater carp feed ravenously, sucking up food into their hungry mouths. One of their favorite meals, algae, has made the fish popular with commercial fisheries, trying to cut algae overgrowth. Hungry carp eat so much algae, they clean up entire ponds. And in their Asian homelands, the fleshy fish are superstars, highly prized for food and sport. To a fisherman, a whopper carp can be the catch of a career.
It is a hard fish to find. In fishing, the giant carp is the ultimate. It is the best freshwater game you can catch.
July 2007, Bangsamlan Lake, 40 minutes from downtown Bangkok. A thriving fishing mecca known for catfish, snakeheads, and giant carp. Local angler and professional fishing guide Kik Pantopapat stakes out a prime fishing spot on a wooden dock near his home. Kik has a critical goal. He wants to test a custom fishing rod he designed and built himself. Kik's finely crafted gear is famed throughout Thailand. Today, the new reel's making its virgin run. Kik baits and drops his line, hoping to snag a few healthy catfish. He rests his rod on the planks. Suddenly, his reel starts to sing, spinning fast, letting off yards of line in fierce spurts.
After a few spins, it started to move, and then it pulled out the line and didn't stop.
Whatever he's got, it's one of the most powerful fish Kik's ever fought.
This one is really strong, heavy. He was a very disobedient fish.
Desperate to gain leverage, Kik struggles to draw the fish closer to the dock, but the behemoth won't budge.
I was reeling in the fish and trying not to break the rod at the same time. It fought for a good amount of time.
Kik gives a frantic pull and gets a sudden glimpse of a dark, scaly creature. It's enormous. But the Leviathan keeps swimming, this time darting all the way under the dock. The longer the nylon thread rubs against the wooden piling, the more likely it'll snap. Kik calls for help from nearby friend and fisherman Sampit. The men struggle to get the monster into Sampit's net, but they make an alarming discovery. The whopper's so big, it'll rip the net to shreds. It's too heavy to hoist. Now, as the tangled line traps the thrashing fish below, Kik's losing the fight from above. Dropping the fishing rod, Kik dives in to free the line. He swims dangerously close to the writhing fish. One whack of a tail could hit like a punch. The angler grabs hold of the twisted line, untangling it fast. As the fish swims out, Sampit tries to corral it one more time using the net as a barrier. Kik's running out of breath. He grabs at the fish. Man and beast wrestle in the water. At last, the battle's over. Kik's got it. A carp bigger than he is.
It made me sink down to my knees. I tried to carry it with my friend, and we tried to carry it, but we couldn't.
The giant fish dwarfs the two men, estimated at almost 2 meters and 120 kilos. One of the largest Siamese carp ever pulled in on rod and reel. Kik and Sampit release the giant back into the lake, free to grow even bigger.
I've been fishing 23 years, and this is the biggest fish I've ever caught. I'm very proud and very happy.
Around the world, some carp species are a contradiction, both dangerous and endangered. Some varieties are deadly invasive species, introduced by smugglers or commercial fish farms. These carp reproduce in large numbers, outfeeding and destroying entire ecosystems. Yet on their home turf, some carp species are overfished. Many carp are dangerously depleted. Both problems point to human appetite. When it comes to what's on the menu, changing our tastes can mean saving big fish. One solution: only eat abundant species, breeding, hatching, and growing fast in your own backyard.
80% of the seafood that's consumed in the United States is imported from other places, which means only 20% is either caught locally or grown locally. The only other alternatives at that point really come down to the consumer. It's the person who goes to the seafood market or goes to the restaurant who can decide.
Among prehistoric monster fish, they're the ultimate survivors. Living fossils, they outsize surfboards and outlive centuries. The white sturgeon.
So these things can get really massive. I mean, people that go out fishing for them quite often catch them, and they're in smaller boats than the fish they catch.
Meet North America's largest freshwater fish. Record white sturgeon have stretched as long as 6 meters, weighing almost 1 ton. Much of their size is thanks to something they share with another alpha predator, the shark.
They look like a shark. They have a tail like a shark, and they even have a prehistoric look like a shark.
There's good reason for the resemblance. Sturgeon belong to the bony fish family. But don't let the name fool you. Like a shark, a sturgeon's secret weapon and competitive edge is cartilage. For all cartilage-based species, the tough material carries advantages brittle bones just can't match.
Well, you know, having a cartilage skeleton is a primitive character. We see it in sharks and rays, which are also very old. It gives them increased flexibility when they're younger, but when they get bigger, that cartilage actually becomes more calcified, gives them protection.
And sturgeon anatomies changed little in the last 70 million years. Proof these predators are strong survivors and one of the most challenging catches on Earth.
They could pull a boat forever. They're incredibly powerful. This is why fishermen love to catch them, because they're a long, hard fight.
August 2006, the Fraser River, British Columbia, Canada. A small fishing expedition sets out deep into sturgeon country. On one of the boats, sportsman Tim Swings nicknamed the Sturgeonator, armed with the might and muscle to tackle these behemoths head-on.
You just need the skill to know when to let the fish run, a strong back and strong arms helps.
So far, Tim's caught some medium-sized fish, but he has yet to reel in a monster. Suddenly, Tim and his fishing guide CJ get an urgent radio call.
Hey CJ, did you see that fish?
Another boat in the expedition needs their help.
It come out of the water.
They're asking for Tim and his brawn.
We need some fresh arms in the boat.
Tim's size and strength are just the support they need.
From what I can remember, he said,
maybe you can send the big guy over.
I think we're going to need the big guy.
Tim and CJ power over to the catch in progress. They have no idea what to expect. Then, a giant sturgeon shoots out of the water, soaring several feet into the air.
When it first broke surface, couldn't believe the size of it. It's just a memory I'll never forget.
On his boat, angler Cyril Paquin's determined to win the fight of a lifetime.
Yeah, when I went out for sturgeon, my brother had gone previously. He had caught a 55-pound sturgeon. So being the little brother, I wanted to beat that 55-pound mark.
Cyril and pro fishing guide Mark Lanes have already been battling the underwater behemoth for a back-breaking 30 minutes.
Just can't move him.
The fish pulls in fast bursts, yanking 100 yards of line at a time, straining dangerously hard against the boat's mooring.
Never had a fish like this on. I'll tell you that.
Mark knows the line's seconds from breaking. There's only one way to save it. Hoist anchor.
Once we had seen what we had on and we realized that this has got to be 10 feet long, it was pretty apparent we had to follow this fish. So I ran up to the front, disconnected the anchor.
As the fight wears on, Cyril can barely feel his upper body.
My hands were numb, sweaty. My forearms were numb. And just then the fish went on a scream and tear. I was scared of letting go of the rod.
Help arrives just in time. Tim Swain pulls up alongside and jumps on board. Grabbing the rod from Cyril, Tim's shocked. The pull's strong enough to yank even a big man overboard.
That was like nothing I'd ever experienced. It just stripped line at will. There was nothing you could do except just hang on.
The fishermen begin handing the rod back and forth. A tag team tug of war.
You ready?
Yep.
Gave me time to rest, and then we just went at it, taking turns from then on. It was just amazing. It's like hooking onto a freight train.
It's like tying a fishing line to a horse's tail, and you smack its backside and try and hang on.
After 90 minutes, the angler's stamina's giving out. Without warning, the sturgeon surfaces, breaching across the back of the boat. It's titanic.
Oh, that's big. That's big. How are we going to land this one?
The sturgeon's too big to reel in. The men have to land it, literally. The team hatches a plan. Get the whopper to shallow water and wrestle it by hand. To do it, they've got to steer the boat, keeping the fish bobbing at the surface safely away from underwater hideouts.
We got it on the surface, and it was probably about 20 feet from the back of the boat as we drifted down the river looking for somewhere to land it.
At last, the boat approaches a sandy bank. The fishermen have no time to lose. Jumping into the water, they approach the biggest sturgeon they've ever seen. Longer than a surfboard, it takes 4 men to grapple with the unwieldy beast. Finally, the team grabs hold. Together, they flip the fish over.
It's got to be over 11 foot. God, that's
friggin' huge.
They've got the whopper at last.
Squeeze them in here.
the size of it.
Hey, Cyril, I got the hook up.
Up close, the anglers are astounded. Almost 3.5 meters long, 1.5 meters around, and an estimated 385 kilos. So massive, it's estimated as one of the biggest freshwater fish ever caught on rod and reel.
The odds of hooking into a fish like that are 1,000,000 to 1. The odds of landing a fish like that after you hooked it aren't that great either. It was really just the accomplishment of we beat the odds. You know, we got this fish to shore.
But the battle isn't over. Fishing guides Mark and CJ are devoted conservationists, armed with microchip tracking tags that help biologists monitor sturgeon populations.
6 Echo.
Working fast, the team has to tag the sturgeon and release it back into the river, ensuring this whopper can keep growing and out-surviving nearly every species on Earth. Mission accomplished. The phenomenal catch makes headlines, and the tagged sturgeon takes off into deep water, alive and well.
It's every angler's dream to catch a fish like that.
For sport fish survival, catch and release is critical. But when it comes to size restrictions, conventional wisdom to keep the big ones and throw back the small ones may be wrong. Intriguing data reveals a twist. Keeping the small ones and releasing the biggest, most fully mature whoppers may be better, especially when it comes to females.
Most fisheries biologists now agree that it's all about big mamas. It's the big mamas that sustain the populations, and they've been around a long time, which means they're the best fit. So they're going to pass those genes on to their offspring, which means they're going to be the future big mamas.
And ironically for a fish, getting caught may actually be a sign of daring, proof of a greater capacity to grow big. Some biologists believe fish who bite lures tend to be those who feed most aggressively, boldly competing for food, driven by the healthiest appetites. Scientists measure these traits, judging different fish using a scale called differences in boldness.
Well, difference of boldness can be looked at in a couple different ways. You're really aggressive in feeding. Or, in the case of big fish, when you get to be that big, you can do anything you want. You can be as bold as you want to be.
For anglers and scientists, it's all part of changing the way we handle big fish like sturgeon to help them survive the next millennia. Titanic beasts of jaw-dropping proportions, extraordinary creatures that dominate the depths. Whether we encounter them through science, industry, or sport, they are alpha predators and super survivors. More than ever, to share our planet with them, we must understand and protect the world's most extreme monster fish.